Tātou, nā mai, haere mai, Hawke mai. Lovely to see everyone this morning. Welcome online, Tanya Hopmans, Councillor Roadley, Councillor Hokianga. Lovely to see you all. Welcome staff. Welcome to the Chief Executive. Councillor Ormsby, just to acknowledge you and your whānau, Wairoa whānau, particularly in the loss of your young cousin. So thank you. Yeah. Aroha to you and yours. Let's open with our printed karakia, kia ora te marino, me karakia tātou.
Kia ora te marino, kia whakapapa pounamu te moana, hei huarahi mā tātou i te rangi nei, aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou ia tātou katoa, hui tai kie.
May peace be widespread. May the seas be like greenstone, a pathway for us all this day. Give love, receive love. Let us show respect for one another. Bind us all together. Thank you, everyone. Housekeeping. Please enter this way for tsunamis and this way for earthquakes. And the bathrooms are down the hallway.
Enter or exit?
Yes, use the exits, please. Thank you. We have apologies, yes. Apologies from Councillor Curtin. Apologies from Mike Paku. Any other apologies?
Michelle
McElroy, travelling overseas as part of climate change kaupapa. And from Councillor Van Beek, Deputy Chair Van Beek. Thank you. Happy to move those from the Chair. Thank you. Seconded, Councillor McIntosh. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. So welcome to our extraordinary meeting of the Hawke's Bay Regional Council to deal with the one item simplifying local government Head Start process, discussion document and to adopt the MOU. It's a fulsome paper. I'm sure everyone's read that well. Chief Executive, but if you can give us a bit of background or any updates, please.
Hi, kia ora koutou, and thank you, councillors, for an early start for a council meeting and for being able to come to an extraordinary meeting. As you'll be aware, government announced on the 5th of May its simplifying local government package, which was an evolution of the package it had previously announced back in November 2025. And essentially what government's new package announced was a dual pathway for local government change and noting that none of this is yet legislated. This is a government's policy position. But what it set out was a voluntary Head Start pathway, which essentially said if councils led by territorial authorities in a region were willing to submit a proposal for local government amalgamation change, then they could enter a Head Start process, but submissions would need to be made on that by the 9th of August. If not, a region would need to wait until a backstop process due late 2027, 2028. So the region as a whole then came together through the mayors and chair of the Regional Council Forum and has considered what that meant and has drafted an MOU which is attached to this paper. And the MOU doesn't commit any individual council to any form of amalgamation. What it does do is say, here are the principles by which we intend to work together as a group of councils around the first decision-making point. And the first decision-making point is, does Hawke's Bay wish to enter the Head Start process? There is a slight difference in role between a significant difference in role between the roles of the territorial authorities and the role of the regional council. Government's policy position was that a proposal from a region can't be submitted by a regional council, but has to be submitted by territorial authorities. I'm getting ahead of myself there. So the TAs have a job ahead of them to make a decision. on whether they wish to enter the Head Start process. And there are some rules of engagement around that, if you like, from government in terms of population and number of TAs needing to put a proposal forward. At the Regional Council, so for HBRC, we have a seat in the process, but we won't be the decision maker in the process. But the region pleasingly has recognised the importance and value of your collective governance experience as expressed through the chair to the Mayors and Chairs Forum, and then the use of the Chief Executive and the Chief Executives Forum and senior staff through to a staff reference group. So essentially, there's an opportunity here for the council to be involved as we head into a decision as a region about Head Start or not. And all the MOU really does is encapsulate that process and set out how that's going to occur. So again, doesn't commit this council to any form of change or amalgamation, simply to being part of a process. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Questions?
Chair, I've got 3 themes I want to cover.
Sure.
And I might start with HBRC's role in the MOU. And I presume that this is quite a high-level MOU and there's still detail to be worked out around the HBRC's role. But has there been any thought put into guardrails for HBRC and our statutory roles and how they transfer into what will be possibly 1 or 2 unitary authorities in the proposal and following the proposal into detailed design?
And Chair, you're sitting at the governance table, so feel free to add to any comments from me. I think, yes, it is very high level, and Department of Internal Affairs issued their guidance to councils entering the Head Start process or wishing to enter the Head Start process a couple of days ago. The detailed design is all to come, so really what DIA and ministers are looking for is a high-level commitment from a region that it has a view of the future, as you say, potentially a unitary, potentially 2 unitaries, who knows, but has a view of the future and is committed to working together to make local government more efficient. A critical part of that will then become in part 2, how do the obligations and functions of councils translate into any potential new model. So design, if you like, is at a very, very high level, I think, at this point, and the detail definitely to come.
Okay, just a question off the back of that. In which way do you see, Sophie or Nick, that detail coming back to this table or committee's table?
Before you answer that, on the back of the first question, my understanding is that this MOU will take the region through to a yes or no, we're entering a process to do more discussion. And I would expect that if the region decides it is stepping into it, that step 2 would require more detailed parameters around exactly the questions you're asking, that at that point we'd need to set up where do the lines sit, where's statutory responsibility and how we are approaching it. So I would not see this document as being the document that would carry through into, yes, we're going ahead, let's start negotiating on, not negotiating, it's the wrong word, discussing those pieces.
Okay.
On the second question. Yeah.
Sorry, I was listening to that answer, and can you ask your second question again?
So in which mechanism will that detail be brought back to this council and these decision makers?
Suggestion in the paper is that we would come back to you monthly or as required with any extraordinary meetings over the next 2 months until we get to the end of the Head Start process. And while this council won't have a decision to make about entering the Head Start process, you may wish to express a view on what is being proposed by the region, if anything. As the chair has just said, I think this MOU takes us through to a go or no-go decision around Head Start. If the decision is go from the region, then the region is going to collectively need to revamp the MOU and think about how is it going to do the detailed piece of work that is ahead of us. What does transition arrangements look like? How are they going to be funded? How are the reporting and decision-making mechanisms going to work? So I think that is all to come, to be honest.
Okay. Sorry, second question, just around funding and funding mechanisms for this work to go ahead. Present to us what that looks like, where the funding is going to come from.
Yep.
And how is the split going to be across councils?
At the moment, the work is funded by interest previously earned on funds held by the Regional Recovery Agency. That will likely take the collective of councils through to sometime in September-ish. The mayors and chairs and the CEs asked the interim regional office to prepare some budgets looking ahead. That work is currently underway, and I think there will need to be a consideration by the collective councils of the region over the next 6 to 8 weeks about what they might collectively be willing to contribute to keeping the process going in the short term. So in the short term, talking kind of September, October, November. Should we get to the point there where Head Start has been entered into, then I think there's a bigger discussion to come for all the councils in the region about what does a potential transitional arrangement look like, how is that going to be funded, and that will all need to come back to this table. So I guess in summary, at the moment, there's been no call on ratepayer funding at this point, but I would expect to bring you another paper sometime in the next 6 to 8 weeks around some short-term pieces, and then with the help of the interim regional office, a collective paper to all councils on the longer-term view.
And note, Councillor Ormsby government's stated there will be no government funding for the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question. Amongst all our statutory obligations and excellent transition of those into a new system, as well as thinking about the funding to do all that work, does this MOU is it open enough to allow addressing what is very complex, the RPC Act in its transition? So does the MOU allow for that discussion, and does it allow for funding to work on that very complex matter?
It certainly allows for the discussion to occur. It's pretty broad in terms of what it says around mana whenua engagement, and happy to update the table on some of the moving parts that have occurred since the paper was written. In terms of funding, I think there would need to be then a discussion between collective of councils and the collective of PSGEs and the RPC.
And to add to that, I think there's the two pieces, as you say, the RPC and the transition into whatever unitaries come about, which I think will definitely be part of phase 2, and then the separate piece of mana whenua engagement in terms of the discussion around a Head Start proposal. So the two quite separate pieces of work and what funding or pathways look for both of those.
Okay, thank you. And it'd be great to hear the mana whenua update, Nick, and then I think Tanya's probably eager to carry on that thread.
You want to wait, Tanya? You want Chief Executive first? Yeah, sure. Thanks.
And I'd just add to the previous comment that I think there's a complex interaction here between resource management change and local government change. And resource management change, we will likely see the report back from the Select Committee at the end of June, beginning of July, and then we will have a clear idea of the legislation the government's going to put in place around spatial planning and natural and environment planning. I think we all suspect that government will say it has a job to negotiate the treaty settlement relationships or the treaty settlement changes that might occur as a result of that, and then over to the region to try and find a way of working through the next 2 years. But just to come back to the work that's occurred in the short term, so since this paper was written, the council collectives minus Whitehall, so ourselves, Napier, Hastings and Central have written to the post-settlement governance entity chairs and CEs to say, hey, we're in the process now of having to think about Head Start, would welcome the engagement of that collective through to the independent facilitators, Lawrence, Yule and Wayne Eagleson, as a first step, and I think the offer was for that to occur as early as this week. And offered support from Te Kupanga, the collective of Māori staff across the councils and the interim regional office. I'm then aware that there's potentially a discussion to come at Matariki a week on Friday following the Te Kahui o Rangahui this week. So lots of moving parts. I think the pleasing thing when we engaged with the government, the minister was clear that he wanted to see engagement with mana whenua occur following his visit to open the stop bank.
Tanya, welcome.
Ata Māori. Thanks for the update, Nick. That's reassuring to hear, because I think my main questions around the MOU is you did mention that there was broad provisions in there, and I think it's in clause 6 of the MOU about engagement with PSGEs and talking about, existing relationships, etc. I would have preferred to see some express language around upholding treaty settlements, and that's because, one, that's the right thing to do, but two, because the Head Start policy document refers to councils being obligated to engage and show as part of their proposals how those treaty settlement redress matters will be upheld as they transition to a unitary authority. And so I think our staff paper picks up on all those points in a more detailed and thorough way than the MOU does, which is disappointing that the MOU doesn't do that. But its actions will speak louder than the words, but I would have liked to have seen the words in there, which also show that the councils have been looking carefully at what the policy settings are. So I just wondered, was that discussed at all in terms of the languaging that went into the MOU?
To the extent that every council expressed both its commitment and desire to do that engagement, I don't think we went into the detail, or the councils went into the detail of all of the treaty provisions, but as you said, Te Kupanga and led by some work from Te Wairama's team have put together a pretty thorough analysis of all of the statutory and non-statutory intersects that this council and the other councils have. And sitting at the top of that list is obviously the treaty settlement obligations, including the RPC, and then they've worked right through down to kind of more MOU level non-statutory instruments. I think in part two as well of the process, should we enter Head Start as a region, there's going to have to be some very thorough mapping of all of that between all the councils and across to the post-settlement governance entities. And I would hope that the collective of that councils see that as a collaborative process in part two. But yes, I agree, the staff paper is probably stronger than the MOU.
Definitely. So with that in mind, if I could just add one more,
Sure.
I suppose, question or comment, is assuming that council approves execution of the MOU today by Sophie on our behalf, it would be helpful to reiterate, particularly given the council has its own individual treaty redress mechanisms with some of the PSGs. I can say, for example, for Maunga Hararu Tangitu Trust, we have a specific redress that relates to the Tangoil Soil Conservation Reserve. And while that should be not contentious, you'd want to know that in a unitary authority, that obligation would roll over to the unitary authority, and everything else would flow as it currently does. That's not actually meant to be a pun in terms of the soil conservation area, but the other one is obviously the RPC is something that the Hawke's Bay Regional Council has said in submissions for RM reform and local government reform that it needs to be upheld, and that's the position of this council. So it would be good to, when it is signed, communicate those messages to the other councils. Sophie, that would be really helpful to do that, I think, just to highlight that while there is some generalised terms in the MOU that relate to engagement with tangata whenua, actually there needs to be clarity that there's an expectation by the government as well as our treaty partners to uphold the existing treaty settlements.
I think that we could take a letter from us alongside our MOU noting some of our specific and important and unusual pieces to that table as an addition to the MOU rather than making amendments within it. But yes, if the table's happy with that, Nick and I can craft something along those lines. And I wouldn't be surprised to see something similar from some of the other councils too.
Actually, other councils, do have, as Te Wairama would have picked up, other councils do have specific treaty redress clauses and settlements that relate to them. We have another one with HTC, for example. But it would also be useful, if it's possible, to share, if Te Wairama could share the information around the treaty redress instruments that she's picked up from going through those settlements. That would be helpful. I'm thinking from the PSGE perspective, so that they can check off that what she's highlighted is everything in their deeds.
The work with Te Wairama is being done cross-council, correct?
Yep.
And they've been working on that for some time now.
Happy to provide a copy.
Thank you. Councillor
Thanks.
Younger?
Through you, Chair, just picking up on Tanya's line of commentary, and I think we've got these mechanisms at play operationally in terms of the cross-council engagement through Te Kupunga or our Māori partnerships. But I think it's important that through the governance lens and the governance platform that we can bring some sunlight onto some level of priority around our thinking with regards to the treaty settlement position. Yeah, I think we should be giving a little bit more visibility to Te Tiriti and those obligations.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper?
I haven't got a question, no.
No question. Okay, questions, yes.
Sorry,
Yes.
and just to pick up on that letter that we're kind of getting the sense that we're agreeing on that letter that's going to go alongside that our position. Will you draft that up, Chair? Would you be putting that together?
Yeah, the Chief Executive will draft that up, yep.
Okay. And with some contribution from the table?
Yeah, happy to
share
share it by the Chair.
Councillor McIntosh.
Chair, look, the MOU deals to this really, but has it ever been explained to us, the government never explained to us its rationale for the dilution of the regional council involvement in this? And I say that in the context of we are a region-wide entity, so have a fair bit of relevance to it. But yeah, and it may be unfair of me to ask that of you, but
Not expressly, no, councillor. But I think if you're thinking about amalgamations within a region, you kind of need those being amalgamated, I guess, to be the movers of that process. But look, no is the answer. Government haven't expressly stated why.
Councillor Parsons?
Just on that, I guess at this part of it, we don't have much input, but the next phase we do, don't we?
My understanding is if this goes ahead and this MOU is simply for the next now 9 weeks or 8 weeks and 6 days, I think it is, to say this region is interested in discussing how amalgamation would look for it into a unitary. If that happens, and we don't know that it will, maybe that at the end of this period we've agreed to, the TAs have agreed not to enter that process. If we do, there will need to be a next step into exactly that. How does that look? What parts do each council play? How will those discussions take place? How will we start to deal with all the statutory obligations of this council? How will all the councils start to deal with their treaty obligations, etc., etc., etc.? So this is a very small first step, really, from my point of view.
I think Tanya's got her hand back.
Councillor Parsons, is that finished?
Yeah, I was just sort of clarifying that was my understanding, that that this is just step one, just to say, yes, we want to engage and have, I think all that other stuff we're talking about should come later, in all honesty.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Tanya, are you hand up again, or is that from last time? Yes, please.
No, hand up again. I know we're talking about an MOU that's dealing with the Head Start proposals, but I do want to just highlight that, as Nick mentioned briefly, there is a transition period of several years between when the bills are enacted for the RM reform and when any Head Start proposal legislation might come into play post 2028 elections. And I know as a council we don't have much sway in terms of what the proposals will look like, given the territorials are driving that and are decision makers on that. But my understanding is that as a council, we do retain a strong role to uphold treaty settlements, as an example, in this transition period between when the bills are enacted and then, when local government is re-elected in 2028. So that's something that, as a council, we should be looking at how we're going to do that. Obviously, we won't know how to do that until the bills have been enacted, but there is, from my perspective, in relation to the Regional Planning Committee as an example, if once the bills are passed, we have to form a spatial planning committee and we've got a natural environment plan to prepare, then we need to understand how the Regional Planning Committee is going to mesh with those new processes or new plans. So there is work for us to do as a council to smooth that over, and I would be looking to our council staff and councillors to engage with that as soon as possible once those bills are enacted, and hopefully we can have some workshops that will help our thinking as to how that is going to be rolled out. And certainly the PSGEs have been working with MFE to talk about what that might look like, and it would be good to be able to share that with councillors sometime soon.
Thank you. Councillor Roadley, did I see your hand go up and down? No. Okay. Any other questions? No.
Just a comment, Chair, that the proposals are due on the 9th of August, correct? Mm-hmm. So, I guess we need to be planning at speed and we need to be engaging at speed, whether it be with community, with mana whenua, with PSGEs. And so, yes, this is a MOU which is quite broad at this stage, but these detailed design plans, I'm just looking at a timeline for you. When will they be back at our table for input?
In terms of, I'll be guided by council in terms of engagement. But the primary community engagers are likely to be the territorial authorities.
Yeah.
And I think there was a broad discussion from the mayors and chairs and the CE's table that us adding to that just makes it more complicated. But we are able to support and direct people to the engagement. And I think Hastings and Napier are both going out soon. We have offered through to Kupanga to technically support around engagement with mana whenua. Again, there's a how far does this council want to go in terms of the detail versus the TAs who are, I guess, the leads at this point. So happy to take guidance on that, Chair. In individual meetings with PSGs, we've talked about the topic, but haven't looked to call tato hui. But if that's appropriate, I'll be guided by you.
I would say I think it's very important for us to be very respectful of the territorial authorities and their role in this. They are being asked to step into a process that their community has very strong feelings about. It is their job, it is their role. Regional councils, irrespective of any decision on going into Head Start, will cease under this government at the end of 2028. So I do think we need to be very clear that the mayors are leading this process, and I'm wanting to be very respectful of the way they would like us to engage or not, and that we're very clear about that. So I don't think at this stage any detailed planning for us, I don't think we will need to wait until the end of 8 weeks and however many days to know if we're going into Head Start. As soon as some of those councils or two of those councils make that decision, I think that will be clear to us, and I think we could then take a next step in what are the early first steps we want to take in that. And in terms of PSGs, I'm aware again that is the mayors leading that conversation and that has been initiated. So I'll be looking to hear back from them as to what they would ask from us after those meetings, and that's appropriate that those one-on-one conversations take place in that space with Wayne and Lawrence. So that's my view of that. And now happy to take, I don't think there's more questions. If someone's happy, is there anyone happy to move the paper as is with the action point that we'll draft a letter alongside and let councillors have a view of that before we submit it? Happy to move? Thank you, Councillor Parsons. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Kuklinski. Happy to take comments and debate. Further?
I'm drawn to a sentence in Part 6 where it says regional councils are explicitly excluded from submitting online proposals under the current policy settings. So we know where we belong. But I think it is important for Hawke's Bay that the regional council is represented in some form. I realise at this stage it's academic whether we vote for it or not, really. But it is important to realise that the functions of the regional council, no matter what unitary is formed or not, most of those functions will carry on in some form under a different banner. So that's all.
Mm-hmm. So supportive of the MOU?
But very supportive. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Kuklinski. Other comments?
Oh, just to come back from Councillor Kuklinski's comments around that. I remember going back to the first phone call that I received from our CE, Nick, and sitting down at St Clair's Beach in Otepoti and Dunedin with my family all around at a cafe, and received the call to say, congratulations, Councillor Waitoa. You know, and to think that we don't decide to take on these kind of these roles because they're enormous roles to take on responsibilities, but we don't take those on with the slight that we won't be here for a long time. We take them on because we're all professionals, and we know that we want to remain in roles for a long time. And I remember that day real clearly because other calls came in that day, and to my left here, Councillor Hawke gave me a congratulations, and as I did for Councillor Hawke, Councillor Ormsby contacted me. But someone that's not here also made a contact that I thought, well, this was a great choice of mine to join the regional council, and that was Councillor Curtin. You know, he phoned me that afternoon before I was heading off to a family function, and he congratulated me. And I got off the phone, and my cup was already full, but at that time it overflowed because I got off the phone and I said to my wife, "Oh my goodness, the man, the legend." We can say that because he's not here. But to receive that call just made my day even that more special. And then we came in like a month or two later, but it was the day before we were going to Tarai, and we had our workshop, and we heard the news that afternoon at 4:00 that we were going to, councillors basically pushed that, said that regional councillors were going to be disbanded, and we were about to lose what we came here for. And so every day since I started, since I had that phone call from Nick to basically yesterday, people always come up to me and say, how do you find the regional council? And hand on heart, I love it. So this is a real tough decision because we do need to, and I'm all for supporting the MOU and going forward, but also I'm really happy that we have the opportunity to stay here for our full term. Because I honestly thought we were about to finish up mid next year. And I don't think that would have been fair, one, to the people that made those phone calls and to all of us and to all of our staff, but I don't think that would have been fair for us new ones who are coming in, because we are trying to bring in our own lens as well. And I hope that wherever this goes to, that we could be a part of some table, because there's a lot of expertise in this room. And I thought I came with a bit of knowledge and expertise, but I'm very humbled by the knowledge that sits within on this table, but also outside our table with our staff. So, yep, I'm in support of the MOU. I'd love to see our community engaged more prior to August 9, but that's not going to happen, and I know we will be able to do that. And definitely would love to see more around our mana whenua, tangata whenua, our PSG's engagement in there as well. So, kia ora.
Kia ora, Councillor Waitoa. Councillor Parsons?
Obviously, I too am in support, but Councillor Waitoa has reminded me of what I thought when I first got the phone call, and I probably had quite a different reaction because I thought, what an opportunity for our region. And since we've been going through this process, I think a lot of us are on board with that. But something that Napier District Councillor said, Napier City Councillor said, Te Kira, said the other day that they're the last council, and we probably need to think that too. We are the last Hawke's Bay Regional Councillors, and we should be making the most of that. And the more that we can have engagement with the TAs and with this process, the better, because I truly believe that as a regional councillor, we have the whole region is what we care about, not just little pockets, but the whole region. And so the bigger voice that we have, the better, and that's representing everybody in our communities.
Thank you. Kia ora. Kia ora, Councillor
Through
Hawke.
you, Chair. I'm speaking in support of the MOU, by the way, but I think it's I would be remiss of me to acknowledge and speak to some points that I guess I'm haven't been okay with, and that's partly the time pressures that we've been served, and I guess ultimately our exclusion from making some of those submissions. That ability taken away from us, but also to pick up commentary from around the table about our role. It's important for our communities, our constituencies, to still have the confidence of where we are positioned in the landscape right now. I think it's really important that we still have a role to play, and there's lots of work that we need to get through so that we can make a meaningful contribution to this transition, whatever process we've been dealt with. But I want to make the point that the time pressures is causing, will be causing us to make some decisions in haste. But I would want to give our communities the confidence that we will support their contributions and the time constraints that we've been given.
Well said, thank you. Councillor Ormsby?
Kia ora. I'm speaking in support of the MOU with the additional letter. And I just note that in the MOU it talks about meaningful mana whenua engagement. And I'm just looking over the recently sent engagement letter to the PSGEs. And there is a lot of resource going into advisors, calling on Te Kupenga for support, and also the interim regional officers' support in this process. And I hope that the mayors, the CEs and the Miro and Chair Forum also support the PSGEs to have the resource and the coordination they need, and not it be left to the interim regional office or any other mechanism that's already been set up. So this is a encouragement to co-design and actually partner and bring to life what meaningful engagement means with our treaty partners in this process. Kia ora.
No other comments?
I might as well complete it, Chair. Yeah.
Yes?
I just want to say, actually, good on the mayors for pulling us into the tent. You know, they didn't have to do that, but they did, and good on them. Conversely, I find the government sort of position irksome, really, where it's kind of said, we don't want you guys, it's indicated quite strongly, we don't want you guys involved, and I don't know how to describe that, petty maybe, but the regional council covers the whole region, so it's got a lot of relevant things that it can bring to the table, and so it really just reinforces my comment at the start. Good on the mayors for pulling us into the tent, and I strongly endorse the MOU.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Roadley?
Kia ora, good morning everyone. Through you, Chair. I'm sorry. I'm speaking in support of the MOU. I realise we literally have very little influence over these next stages, but absolutely endorse that we need to be at that table. And thank you, Chair, for stepping into that role on our behalf. 100% support and endorse the resourcing and effort that's going into supporting our mana whenua, our PSG entities and tangata whenua to be represented in the process and their agreements upheld. I am mindful that many of the regional council functions are driven by and impact and affect rural communities also. And so I want to be just mindful that we also need to be thinking about our whole communities, right to the edges of our region, those isolated and rural communities, those farming communities, so that their thoughts are embedded in any work in the stage 2 phase and beyond, as we shape up what that next I think Thompson said banner, whatever that might look like, the new entity, so that they're deeply embedded in it. And I think that's a specific function, or not, it's not a function, a specific kaupapa that the regional council brings. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We have a mover and a seconder. Put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any against? That's carried. Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of our whole meeting. Let's close with our closing karakia. Before I do, let's send our thoughts, to Te Warama, who is recovering. We wish her the very best. Closing karakia, ni karakia tātou. Kua mutu a mātou mahi, mō tēnei wā,
Mana ki tia mai mātou katoa, o mātou hoa, o mātou whānau.
Ai o
Ki te aorangi,
Tihei Māori ora. Kia ora, everyone.
Kia ora.